On Monday, I would say probably there couldn't have been too many questions. Nobody asked any questions during the session. You didn't really have that much time. I think the focus was elsewhere. Submitting assignments. Some students actually writing supplementaries or did write supplementaries, but the focus was, I think, elsewhere. You couldn't really focus on it yet, and most boxes have been ticked. Now we're actually on that next. We're on that next box, and that is to ensure that we are properly prepared for the formal test, the term test. That's on Monday, right after the long weekend. I'm pretty sure from everybody, it was, I think, it's only Lelio. Am I right? The rest of you were all in class on Monday, right? Larissa's joined us. Larissa, I don't think you were also absent on Monday afternoon. So basically, what I've decided to do is to break up and I'm going to go to the next slide. You've seen this slide already. Those who were in class on Monday have seen this slide already. I'm going to start every revision session with this first page because it's sometimes when you go into Canvas and you watch a recording, you're not exactly sure in which recording this particular format of the test was shown and discussed. So I'm going to include it in all the recordings that we are doing for this entire week. It will always be the first page. I might repeat myself, and then also obviously not all the students are always in all the sessions. I'm going to upload the PowerPoints, the slides for that I've used in these recordings as well. I forgot to do the other one on Monday, but I'll do both. And I will upload it in this week on your calendar. If you go onto the SOP22 module, you go onto the module schedule on the home page on Canvas, you scroll down, I think this is week 8, and it will be the slides as well as the recordings I'm going to include in the live sessions. I'm going to include the slides among the other slides in your resources. I'm going to include it in the live sessions. You know that everything that we've done this week, the recordings as well as the slides that we've worked through on Monday and that we'll work through today and tomorrow, will be on that same page. So if you want to refresh yourself and start your preparation for the test, you can go just to that one section on Canvas. Obviously, you would have access to the rest of the slides as well. I'll just double check and make sure that everything is fine, and I try to do an update every day if there's any changes in the slides. Maybe an example that I've used is different to the one that's in the original slides that was loaded up in June already. Okay, so for those who weren't here on Monday, you probably do know, and if you don't, then this is a very, very timely reminder that coming Monday, the Monday after the long weekend, you will be writing your term test or your formal test. It's a 2-hour limited online quiz, open book, on the first 9 chapters, and apologies, it'll be available to you the whole day, exactly like you wrote your term tests in the first semester for the modules you had in the first semester. It will be done because because classes will continue as normal. It's not an exam period where there's no classes at all. Classes will continue as per usual in week 9, but that's why we've allowed the entire day or made the test available to you the entire Monday, and you can decide what time is best for you to do it. I will not discuss the paper in class on Monday during Monday afternoon session. We've got Monday the 10th period, I think. Was it the 10th period or was it the 9th period? I'm not exactly sure. Monday the 10th period. Coming Monday, I will not be discussing the test because some students would have completed the test already and some will still have to do it. Okay. I'm also not really expecting too many to attend that session. Maybe a lot will use that time, the class itself, to do the test because that's usually scheduled as a online session. Any questions from anybody? Especially Larissa and Leo, who didn't attend or weren't part of the discussion on Monday afternoon, related to the question paper itself. And then obviously my second question is any questions on the first 3 chapters that we did revision on Monday afternoon. Anybody, anything about the test itself related to the information you have on your screen at the moment?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay. Everybody good? Everybody else fine? Anybody, any questions on chapters 1, 2, and 3 that we did on Monday? Remember, this is a revision, so I'm doing a snapshot of the chapters that, and I'm doing it 3 chapters at a, except for today. Today I'll be doing, I'll be covering chapters 4 to 7, and tomorrow we'll do chapters 8 and 9. Okay, right. If nobody has any questions on chapters 1 and 2, and chapters 1 and 2 dealt with, I'll just grab the textbook and clarify that for everybody. The role of selling, the different types of selling, the characteristics of modern selling. We did that on Monday afternoon. The marketing concept, the marketing mix, what a marketing mix looks like for B2C markets and B2B markets. And then we also did objectives, strategies, tactics that we find in chapter 3, sales and marketing planning, basically what that chapter is about. The chapter we'll start today, chapter 4, deals with specifically, and those who have textbooks with them, they can go through that, or maybe on another monitor I have the slides on chapter 4 open. Chapter 4 deals with the consumer and as the consumer as well as organizational buying behaviors. You can remember from first year marketing, and if you forgot, we revisited during consumer behavior in the first semester. When a consumer buys a product or is considering to buy a product, they go through 5 steps. Those 5 steps being identifying, recognizing, or realizing there is a problem. They will then obviously start gathering information on all different alternatives that is available to satisfy that particular need or solve that problem they have. And they can use previous experiences. A lot of people use previous experiences. There's internal and external resources that you can use to help you in gathering information on the alternatives. If your dad was driving a particular vehicle, my apologies, and you're considering to buy that same brand, then obviously he would be somebody that you whose opinion you trust and value. You will ask him on the experiences he's had with the car. You'll ask friends. And then you'll do your online shopping as well. You go onto Cars24 or AutoTrader and all these online platforms before you actually eventually go to the shop. The third step would then be to start evaluating all this information that you have gathered through all the different resources that I've mentioned now. And that usually results in you drafting a sort of a short list based on the criteria that you've set for yourself. Criteria might include affordability, fuel consumption, the specific features that the vehicle must have. Like, for instance, if you're a mountain biker, you'd probably prefer it to have a tow bar. If you're outdoor camping individual, tow bar is necessary, maybe even a sunroof. Most vehicles are standard nowadays with air conditioning. If you're somebody who don't travel a lot but just need to get from point A to B, it means that you're probably looking at a more fuel efficient vehicle because you're not going to do long distances. So you will have a list of criteria, and you will now evaluate your options that you have gathered information on in step 2, and then eventually in step 4 decide then to buy, to find the product or service that best matches the criteria that you have set. There won't necessarily always be a 100% match. The one that best matches the criteria that you've set to satisfy your specific need is the one that you're going to choose. And then also you're going to choose different ways of payment. Could be that you've usually, when it's a vehicle, like in this example I'm busy using now, it would probably be you might have saved up money to pay a deposit. It might be that you're going to finance the full transaction. There are different payment options. Once you've finished the transaction, you bought the vehicle, you go into this next step, which is step 5, where we start evaluating over a period of time if we are satisfied with the vehicle that we have bought or with the transaction that we have made. You're either very happy or you're not 100% satisfied, and often you find yourself in that position where you are still not sure. You're not sure if you made the right decision. Maybe you should have gone for a slightly cheaper vehicle. Regardless, but that is what happens during that phase. If you're completely dissatisfied, if it's not an expensive item like a vehicle, for instance, that you can't just, you can't buy a vehicle and a week later go back and say, you know what, sorry, I made a mistake. This is not, I shouldn't have bought this car. They're going to laugh at you. Okay, so if, however, it is a reasonably inexpensive item, you go back to the shop and say, listen, I'm sorry, I bought this. My apologies. I bought this yesterday. I opened it when I got home. The first couple of slices of the bread was fine, and then it started tasting stale. They would usually just replace it, and because it's a reasonably inexpensive item. Okay, that's the 5 steps that you are familiar with, that consumers go through when they're making decisions to purchase a product. Now, it's slightly different. The similar steps, let me test my textbook to get the exact page for you. In chapter 4, when businesses do transactions, when they have to purchase stationery or equipment for their business to ensure that they can conduct their business, they go through similar steps. There are 7 steps on page 96 in the 11th edition. They also start with recognizing a problem. For instance, we realize here at Stadio that we need another 2 more classrooms. We find some extra space in the same building here on the Bellville campus for those Centurion students, which I think at the moment is probably only Lyndall. I haven't checked all the names yet. Yeah, probably. But then on the other hand, now we've got an empty room. You need desks, you need chairs, you need desktops, you need electronic equipment, you need a data projector. So you will now go out and obviously you will have to purchase those items to equip the classroom so it can actually be used as a classroom. So it again starts with the recognition of a problem, but the steps are slightly different because here, when you get to the purchasing step number 4, you are not going to, the person who's identified the problem. It's not just one single individual consumer. It's a business. And for that reason, there are quite a few people who are involved or needs to be involved before a final decision to buy is made. And that's where different proposals and quotes from different suppliers are now obtained. And then you look at the specific criteria, you look at your budget. So your financial manager, your HR manager, your IT manager, all these people get involved. And then finally they decide on a particular proposal or quote that is that best suit their needs and their budget, and they go through a process of ordering it. It's also very often products in quantity and in quality, and also when it comes to the monetary value of a transaction, that's quite high, and therefore you're probably going to get it delivered. You're not going to go to the shop and collect 15 or 20 or 100 desks and chairs and all that equipment. No. You're going to decide on a supplier who can give it to you at the time that you need it, which means they have it in stock, in the quantities that you need, and actually included in the transaction is the delivery. So that's usually the same process that you go through. And my apologies. And then very often, and it's happened to me when I was at the previous college, we had to equip ourselves with some desks and chairs, and only the supply that we've used for many years, and we're very satisfied with the service and the quality of the products. They Western Cape branch didn't have any in stock or sufficient quantity for us to engage in transaction, but they then contacted the branch in Durban, which and they had, and obviously it was transported down from Durban. When it got here, because and still to today, I don't know why the guys didn't think of using a closed truck to do to load and deliver the desks and chairs. Maybe because they had one eye on the weather and they thought, oh, well, we're going through the Karoo and there's never rain in the Karoo. It's been dry for 50,000 years. And lo and behold, they ran into a thunderstorm through the Karoo just outside of Beaufort West. So some of the desks and chairs actually got some water damage when it was down here. It wasn't. It was a question of because of the quantity that we've purchased, the amount of the transaction. It wasn't a problem for them to replace the items that were damaged, obviously, because that's not the one. That's not what we ordered. So yes, there is, when it comes to the evaluation of your satisfaction, the final step for the individual consumer, it is similar for organizations when they do business. Now, there are a few differences between consumer and organizational buying, which you'll find in Chapter 4 as well. I think there's a few, 6 or 7 that we've identified. We'll quickly run through the ones that we have identified. The first being that there are fewer organizational buyers. There's close to 59 million people living in South Africa. Probably, I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is. We'll know after the census next year what the percentage of children and teenagers who not really who are influencers, but not necessarily decision makers when it comes to buying products. They will influence their parents when they go to the shop on what they buy, but they don't buy themselves. So if you look at what percentage of people under the age of 16, for instance, out of the 59 million, I'm not exactly sure, but let's say it's 10 million. So you've got 49 million people left in the country who have the capacity to or qualify as individual consumers. Now, those individuals can buy from any shop and they can buy any products that they want. And they have lots of choices. When you go out to a retail store, and hopefully you guys have made plans for Heritage Day, what you're going to buy or put on the braai for Friday. If not, you still have time. But you have a range of retail outlets that you can go, from Food Lovers Market through Woolies to Pick n Pay and ShopRite and Spar. There are so many that you can go to buy consumable goods, household goods. And there are obviously a lot of suppliers, and there's also a lot of buyers. When it comes to businesses, obviously there are fewer, because there are not equal amount of organizations than there are individual consumers. In a particular industry, there's probably 5 or 6 big ones and a few smaller ones, and there are also limited suppliers that you can actually buy from. And that is one of the biggest distinguishing differences between consumers and organizations when it comes to making buying decisions. Also, the relationship between a buyer and a seller in a organizational transaction is so much stronger. It's a relationship that has been built over a period of time, which is not necessarily the case when you don't have a sort of a close relationship with every cashier at the Pick n Pay or Spar or Checkers or ShopRite checkout till. They do their job, and you greet them, you're friendly with them, but there's no specific relationship between the buyer and the seller when it comes to consumer buying. But it's exactly the opposite when organizational buying is in question. Yes, we can say that organizational buyers are more rational, purely because very sort of spur of the moment, you have like my son last night, and I said, why don't you have these cravings after business hours? I'm not going to go to the shop now. I mean, I'll just take note that you have a craving, but you know what? People, individual consumers, they have that very spur of the moment kind of buying behavior often, where it's not going to be the case with organizational buyers. They're not going to go out all of a sudden and say, okay, right, we need 100 desks, we need 100 chairs. Okay, you know what, drop everything, you two come with me, let's take let's take your vehicle and your vehicle, and we've got 2 trailers, and we go out and buy. No, you don't do that. It's not spirit. And then you get back, and obviously because you haven't followed protocol, there's all kinds of chaos. It's more structured, it's totally different, and you can therefore say that maybe organizational buyers are slightly more rational. You will also find that reciprocal buying is very important for organizations because of the very strong relationship that they've built with specific suppliers over time, and then also because in some cases a particular supplier might be supplying you with tailor-made products that no other supplier stock, but they stock it specifically for you. The manufacturer stock it specifically for you. And therefore, the chances that if a solid relationship has been formed over years between the buyer and the seller, when an organization needs to replace or upgrade or expand, they buy from the same supplier again. Obviously, barring the fact that that supplier is still in business. It's not necessarily that kind of loyalty is present among individual consumers. You might have a loyalty card with Woolies or a loyalty card with Pick n Pay or Spar, and you know that if you buy there, that you will get rewards because of that loyalty program that you are part of. But that's not going to prevent you to go to a different brand or to a different supplier if a particular one doesn't have anything in stock. If I have a specific item that I'm looking for, I'm going to first go to the retailer, let's say it's Pick n Pay, that I usually use. If they don't have it, although I'm loyal and I will still keep on supporting them, but Checkers or Spar maybe have that item in stock, I'll buy it from my second or third choice. So there's no necessarily, although there's a loyalty, excuse me, with consumers, reciprocal buying do occur, but if the product is not in stock, they'll quickly, or slightly cheaper elsewhere, they'll quickly use a different supplier. Organizational selling and buying may be more risky. It is definitely more risky because it is the monetary value of the transactions are so much bigger. 5 breads and 3 cans of milk, or 3 bottles of milk, containers of milk, compared to 15 desks and 5 monitors and 50 chairs. It's just a complete different transaction. Organizational buyers is also more complex, or buying is definitely more complex, because there are more people involved, as we've identified previously, in the decision-making process. There's a specific protocol, there's a specific process that needs to be followed for the transaction to actually take place. Very often, in the case of individual consumers, the initiator is also the person who pays for it, and often uses it as well, which is not necessarily the case in organizational transactions. We have said it previously, this is part of our revision, so I'm repeating it. You're not going to negotiate you're not going to negotiate with a retailer like a Spar or a Pick n Pay or a Checkers on household goods. There's a lot of brochures and a lot of flyers and a lot of information and ads in the newspapers and on television and on the radio about specials that's on. It's your choice as the consumer to go to the one that's offering the special or not. They're not going to engage in any discussion. I said, listen, you know what? This is this brand I usually use, but it's slightly more expensive I see today than another brand, because they're not going to engage in any negotiation. But when it comes to organizational transactions, because of the quantity that you're buying, because of the amount of money that you're going to spend, very often part of that final steps before reaching closing a transaction would be some form of negotiation. Maybe it could be discount because you've bought a certain quantity of products. Maybe it could be because an extended payment plan. Instead of 60 days, it might become 90 days or 120 days that you have to pay. It's all part of a negotiation process, which you'll find is more evident in organizational transactions than it would be for individual consumers. Right. My apologies. I think the final part, and I think chapter 4 closes towards the end, the factors that affect organizational buying behavior that you see on the screen in that image. I think the image was page 100 in 11th edition. There are a few factors. The first one is obviously the buy class. Here we specifically refer to the fact that the organizational buying can be because you need a specific item, because you need it for a new task. You didn't have a need for it. Now there's a specific need for it. So it's a new task that has to be performed. That's why you are buying this product for the first time. It could be that you are upgrading a modified rebuy, so you're buying the same product but just the latest version, or it could be a straight rebuy. You use the same kind of copying paper for your copiers, and it's just a question of putting another order in because you are low on stock, using the same, and you're just repeating the transaction, repeating the buy of the same product because you've run out of it. Then also we can look at the product type. The important thing here specifically is when we look at maintenance and repairs and operation, which is the MRO that you see in that block on the right-hand side of the screen on the product type. There could be specific materials, the type of product. Often businesses buy materials so they can actually use it in a different process to manufacture something else. Sometimes businesses are just buying capital or do capital layout for equipment that they need for their factory or their business. They're not going to change the product itself. They're going to use it in the form that they've bought it. And then very important is all like products and services for the maintenance, the repair, and the operation is also part of the decision that businesses take. If it's a product if it's an item, a piece of equipment, for instance, that needs regular servicing by a technician, it should be part of the transaction. I know that when I was still in the gym industry as well, that was one of the first things that I checked when we bought new equipment. What is their repair and maintenance policy? Do they bring technicians out to the site to service it there or to repair it on site? Do they collect it and replace it with a substitute for the time that they are busy repairing it? Those are things that's all part of or all included in the type of product category when you decide or that influences your buying decision as an organization. Similarly, you look at the importance of the transaction. Do you need the product now? How great an emergency is it? Obviously, businesses do often plan very far ahead, so they know way in advance, and they even put the orders in way in advance because they know it's a lengthier process. It has to go through different channels of approval, but they therefore start the process way in advance. So by the time that they need a product, and obviously the supplier obviously has the product as well. Maybe sometimes it's a product that they don't carry in stock, but they manufacture it on order, like the just in time that we did later on in chapter 8, or chapter 9, I think. And then also life happens, and therefore there are emergencies that we weren't aware of, and now we have to make an emergency purchase. That often happens in businesses where maybe there was a fire at the campus and it destroyed 3 classrooms, and you now obviously need to replace the items, and very quickly, so you can actually get back to offering your normal service. So the urgency of the purchase is also a factor that influences the decision making of an organizational buyer. Right, at this point we are then also, it's not on the screen, but we have also in chapter 4, towards the end of chapter 4, you look specifically at reverse marketing and what reverse marketing is. Basically referring to the process where in the past, usually marketers approach buyers or potential buyers. They inform them of what they have available. They try and persuade them and to buy from them. Where with reverse marketing is exactly the opposite. Businesses or buyers go out and they specifically source suppliers that can satisfy the needs that they have. They are looking for a particular product. They're looking for a particular features in a product, and the buyer goes out and shops around to find suppliers that can satisfy their need. Maybe in just with features, but also maybe with quantity of a particular product. Right. So that basically covers chapter 4. I think at this stage it is, although it's only midway through Wednesday, it is still small Saturday. you can look at it two ways. Because this is a short week, you can actually see today as Thursday already. But regardless, Thursday or Wednesday, it's one of those difficult periods of a week that we have enough energy to to last for the rest of the week, but we occasionally need to just take a break. That's exactly what we're going to do now. I'm going to, because we finished chapter 4, I don't want to start with chapter 5 and then 2 minutes later we actually then engage in a break. We are going to take a short 5-minute break. I'm going to stop the recording for this session, and then